When it comes to retro games, they're absolutely still enjoyable. And it doesn't really matter about the graphics, it just overall delivery, the soundtracks they offer, and a lot of them can be very much similar in the whole facet of things, whether it's just a platformer, RPG, or anything that really delivers that criteria of a retro game. And also, depending on who you are, is what really verifies what is a retro game. Well, where I'm from, I think retro, is anything from Dreamcast all the way before. So like N64 and all of that, and Super Nintendo. And speaking of Nintendo, Nintendo is doing the World Championships. It's right around the corner. It's the Nintendo World Championships NES edition. I believe they've done a Super Nintendo edition once, I believe. But the NES World Championship looks phenomenal, by the way. If you haven't seen some of the trailers, especially with the Nintendo Direct, they showed a little bit of highlights of it. You can get a digital version for $29.99 USD. And what they're doing with this is having people do like speed runs and competing, just for a lack of a better term, and just having fun overall and seeing who can be the best of the best. And when things like this are happening, it's pretty cool because in recent times we also had a huge record for esports and having over 10,000 unique competitors, meaning gaming has evolved from something simple like Nintendo World Championships all the way to actually EVO, which is the biggest fighting game esport event, having 10,000 plus, which beats the record for all esports, including FPS games and everything. And it had to come from a fighting game scenario, which fighting games are known to be super niche anyway. So it's incredible that they actually did that. And it all goes back to the fundamental and the foundations of these types of games in Nintendo and just retro games and the retro realms of things. And I'm so excited for retro all the time. We had been running retro games in recent times on our streams and we've been having fun. We've been delivering so much laughs. And we also have videos on this channel talking about some of the retro games and how they're just so monumental, from Mega Man X to Super Metroid, Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario World. And these were all very much games to this day that still hold tons of ground. These are games that were created in the 1980s. Mega Man was in the 1980s. Donkey Kong was in the 1980s. Mario is in the 1980s. Metroid, 1980s. How phenomenal is that? That games in the 1980s, these were out even before I was born. I'm considered a millennial. I was in the 90s. And to see that these games in the 80s were actually through the roof and take it to a whole nother level when it comes down to Super Nintendo, and there's just to really life just go full circle and now have this Nintendo World Championships, shows why that retro games remain undefeated. It's a plethora of experiences that, you know, there's a pie chart of this. Some of it could be nostalgia bait. Some of it could just be classic aspects, or just in recent times, like recent biases, which is like games are too recent right now for us to really understand how great they are, right? It has to be able to be foregone in order for us to be like, okay, oh yeah, that game was badass too. But in recent times, there's also a lot of weird things happening with consoles, right? Consoles are not at least this generation, a lot of people are kind of really mixed about this generation of consoles from PS5 and Xbox Series SX, due to what they have released, right? You got to understand that these consoles released during the pandemic, there's a lot of scalpers and all that going on. And we don't see enough. And if you look at the PlayStation, the state of play, it wasn't as great this past time. Xbox is doing phenomenal. It is going to take a little bit longer to see all of that product come to fruition. Some of them are dripping in slowly, but you see that Xbox is doing really well with that, which a lot of them are going to be multi-platform type games anyway. So that is good. So it was kind of drip fed to us, and then eventually starting to get rolling since the actual 20 aspect. And I would say a lot of these games that got hype were technically retro titles also. So when we think about retro being undefeated, this is a great way of how I want to segue into this. Look at all the Xbox games that were available. We could start with Xbox Showcase and what I'm talking about. I want to cover some of the games like Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark was known to be on Nintendo 64. And you also have Doom. Doom's from a long time ago. So I feel that those are already some titles that can be known as classics, and along with the Nintendo Direct. These were all games that started, Super Mario, Mario Party still going on till this day. Zelda's still going on. Zelda's another game in the 80s. And so this game is still going on. Then you also have all these other titles that continuously come from OG aspects. It depends on what your definition of retro is. What you have, like Metal Gear Solid. And all these titles that we had been asking for a very long time are rejuvenating, revamping themselves. And it's also an era of a lot of remasters, reconfigurations, just re-releases, complete reboots of the world. Mortal Kombat is one like that. Street Fighter has been like that. Tekken is like that. Again, these are games that are still, arguably could be landing in the retro, more recency type retro versus the games I'm actually mentioning now. But these are all games that all rebooted themselves, remastered themselves, restructured themselves, redelivered themselves, but are still keeping a lot of the core fundamentals. Metroid Dread came out not too long ago, kept the core fundamental everything. Super Mario Wonder kept the full on just actual fundamental process of itself. And Donkey Kong Country Returns kept its fundamental process of itself. And it continuously does it because it's something about the game that we all enjoyed. And it's the great thing about playing retro is that whether you're a parent or you're just older like me and you just want to relive some of the moments, but also have a magnifying experience of the rejuvenation in today's era and aura of the delivery, then these are games that are perfect, or games that are just like more comfort food type of games. If you play PvP a lot like me, like these fighting games can get very stressful online. I play Mortal Kombat, Tekken at high ranks. You play Call of Duty or Rainbow Six Siege. You go back to a lot of these games that are involved with the Nintendo World Championships from day one, and then you go into the Switch games till today. A lot of them can be RPG element type games, and they can be a lot of comfort food games where they can go even to the subject of cozy games. And a lot of that has to do with the music. Sonic, right? Now we're looking at Sonic. This is a great game I also want to talk about. I had talked about Sonic in my recent video in my channel. Like what I said, I have a Sonic video. I have a Mega Man X video. I also have a Super Metroid video. These are all games that I visited recently, and I was like, damn, like these games are really, I wouldn't say comfort food because they do have their difficulties, right? There are massive challenges in these games, but there's somewhat of an emotion that comes along with these games and an immersion. And you could tell that, which segues me to my last point of conversation of why retro games remain undefeated. You got the Nintendo World Championships. You got all these revamps, especially showing in the Xbox Gaming Showcase. Even State of Play, Astro Bot was like one of the biggest games, and it kind of replicates an old school 3D platformer. And then you have 2D platformers all over Nintendo to this day. And then also on the last notion is the fact that AA games and also indie games still really correlate to these prospects and these aspects of how gaming should be developed. I wouldn't say should, that's more of like an objective, but at least with care and with creativity and some risk involved to really try to see how much reward you can get out of it. AA games and indie devs are really, really great with it. When you see games like Helldivers 2, Power World, then you also see all these other indie type games that really take one developer and have gone through the roof, and there's a lot of games like on Twitch right now that are really made by single developers, and horror games are just like Lethal Company. Like all these games are all just very much, it didn't take too much. It didn't have to be this insane inclined graphic notion. It was just more of the delivery, the passion, and the simplicity of just having fun in games. And that's why, at least to my opinion, that I think that retro games remain undefeated, because not only do they have revamps of things like the Nintendo World Championships, but AA games, indie devs, and then the ideas of Nintendo to this day still remain the same. All the reboots that are coming around on Xbox from our favorite titles still to this day. And it was one of the best showcases it probably was in a long time. And this had to do with a lot of just gaming going back to gaming in a world that was just dominated by Battle Royale not too long ago. For at least it had a good run, this Battle Royale era. It looked cool to see the showcase being shown with all types of games that can really comprehend facets of multitudes of gamers, where everybody can just be like, yeah, you know what, I love this game, I might tap in this game. It's going to expand your library and the genres you actually play. And I think I had to owe that to retro games. And to this day, I'm proud to be a gamer, and I could always thank retro games for at least reminding me of what gaming was to me. And that is just the simplicity of playing, especially a lot of these have some banger soundtracks, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think. I appreciate y'all. Peace.